This is episode 10 with Jesse Ortiz.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
Aloha, Men of Abundance. Today we are having a conversation with Jesse Ortiz, but before I introduce Jesse, I want to remind you that you can get involved in the conversation by going to menofabundance.com/010, and in the show notes you will find the link that will take you directly to the Facebook community. Or you can go to Facebook and search Men of Abundance Community. Click on the green button and I will give you access so you can get involved in the conversation. And of course, I would like for you to be abundant in your actions today by simply sharing this show with 3 people that you know. You can either do that by sharing directly to your social media or send menofabundance.com link to 3 men who you know can use this information. All right, as I said, our guest today is Jesse Ortiz, and Jesse is the host of a podcast called Lifestyle Conversations. Jesse helps entrepreneurs become conscious entrepreneurs so that they can create true health, wealth, and happiness in their lives. Jesse is a single dad of 4 and lifestyle entrepreneur and coach from Houston, Texas. All right, Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Wally. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I've already gone over a very brief bio. I told the Men of Abundance a little bit about you, but let's hear a little bit more. Let's get a little bit personal.
Yeah, for sure, Wally. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I like to just kick off my heroes, quote-unquote heroes journey with, I was your typical corporate zombie, buried in spreadsheets and emails. And, if you're listening to podcasts or our kind of shows, then you know exactly where I'm coming from. But yeah, man, so I was always, in my corporate world and dealing with my responsibilities. I'm a single dad of 4. But, I kept wondering and asking myself, is this it? Is this really all there is to life? But about 2013, the voices, the questions kept getting a lot louder, and that's where I really started moving towards what I'm building now, which is also a freedom-based business around my own podcast, Lifestyle Conversations. And the thing was that in 2013, as I mentioned, the questions got louder. And I was approaching my late 30s, I was 36, 37 years old. I also experienced around that time, I experienced a divorce. So that was kind of like a reality check for me. And I realized that at that point that anything in life can come apart or be taken away from you. And all we really have is ourselves and our experiences. So I just kind of sat down and I just told myself, this is either going to make me or break me. And I think you and me both have probably heard of stories where divorces can end up breaking people. So that's where my call to adventure kind of came, and I decided to just go head on. And face it head on. And
that's pretty amazing. And you're a father of 4, a single father of 4. And how are you managing all that?
It's not easy, Wally. It's ever evolving. You're always trying to be the perfect dad. It seems like, especially with having to split time with between mom and dad. Sometimes it feels like you're not spending enough time with them or doing enough time for your kids, but you just like in business and in life, you just show up, man, and you show up and you do the best you can, and you improve along the way, learn from your wins and losses. And it's not easy, life is not easy. I think a lot of the listeners from Men of Abundance, if they're listening to your show, know that life is not easy, but you got to just push on through and show up every day. But definitely managing your day is a big part of it, because if you don't plan out your day, plan out your weeks, then life can definitely take over.
Yeah, certainly planning on purpose makes a big difference, and we talk about this quite often on Men of Abundance, and that is, so many people plan out their daily activities, they plan out their work schedule, they plan out, if they have a business, then you're planning out your daily business routine and all that kind of stuff. Some fathers and some families, they just don't plan in that family time. They just let it happen. And when there's white space on the calendar, and it's just as important as the rest of the day.
Yes, definitely, Wally. And yeah, you took the thoughts right out of my mouth. You have to plan those times with your family, and there's many variables that can cause a divorce. And for those who are in a relationship, that's also very important to always be growing and always be developing with a relationship, and because that high school sweetheart is not always going to be the same high school sweetheart as you develop in your relationship, and I don't think any relationship is ever the same. In the beginning, it's always, I was married for like 10 years, and in the beginning it's the birds are singing and the sky is blue, but anybody who is in or has been in a long-term relationship knows that that's very, very short-lived. So that's where it comes in. It's so important to grow together. As cliche as it sounds, you are either growing together or growing apart. So definitely you have to schedule those times to enjoy just the time with your family, kids, and significant others.
Now you're in a different situation where you're splitting your time with the kids, and I don't want to get too personal on that, but I recently had a conversation with another guest, and that was very vital that they had a very, very good relationship, the ex-wife, for the sake of the kids, because ultimately at this point it's about the kids. So how's that working out for you?
Yeah, for sure. No, we can dive deep. I mean, that's definitely what caught my attention about your show, Wally, and I just want to hopefully use my message to help somebody who might be going through this situation, or maybe somebody who just wants to learn and avoid this type of situation. But there's definitely times when you feel very, very alone. I mean, even when you're starting off a venture like this, there's times when you think that nobody's listening to you. But you just, you have to keep showing up, and the relationship between your ex, it's always going to be a challenge. For me, there's been times when, oh yeah, my relationship is perfect with my ex-wife, but then there's times when, you just can't stand to see that person's face, and it's normal, but you have to, you really have to be an adult about it and realize that, hey, it's it's for the better of the kids. I mean, the only thing that you're doing when you're arguing or making things bigger is you're making things tougher on children, especially if there's children, and even if it's a battle just between spouses. The way I see it, the more arguing there is, the more expensive it gets. And that's definitely, I'll leave it at that right there.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that before, but that I can certainly see where that comes in at, without a doubt. And situation always dictates based on how the relationship was. If the relationship was super abusive, then obviously your contact with that other individual has to be very limited, because just for your own self-worth, or in some cases for legal reasons.
Yeah, definitely. And so, like I said, and I wanted to just share my story, because I know, as I mentioned, the mission behind your show, I know how tough divorce can be on a man, and how much it can take away from you, and even just a simple breakup. But of course, when it's a simple breakup, if it's boyfriend and girlfriend, if you want to, I've heard of people who stay in touch even as friends, but if you want to, you can completely avoid contact with that person for the rest of your life. But when it's a breakup from a family and there's children involved, you're going to have to man up and face that person every time you pick up your children, or every time there's a birthday or a big a social event at school or something, you're going to have to show up. So, and that's where I wanted to just encourage men to just invest in themselves by doing more reading, by listening to podcasts like yours, Wally, and that's just going to help you become a stronger, grounded man, because it's so easy to get lost in divorce, whether it's by getting depressed or with anger, and you have to really check yourself and just as I mentioned, just ask yourself, man, is this really going to break me, or is this going to make me better and become a better man with this experience?
Yeah, of course, you're definitely spot on, because that's exactly where the show is coming from, where Men of Abundance is coming from, and you hit two things really quick, and that is reading and or listening to podcasts. I'm a big advocate of audiobooks, because even during my commute, or even I like to read. I love to read, but I'm a slow reader, so I like to get through content much quicker, and I can do that with audiobooks. And when I discovered podcasts, there's just so much information out there. There's podcasts for couples. There's podcasts for every specific subject. And I just think it's very important for men to get over that barrier of thinking, I can do this myself, I don't need help, and to find somebody that you resonate with and you can relate to that's been through a similar situation, because nobody's situation is exactly the same, but somebody who's been through a similar situation like yourself and some of my past guests and other podcasts for that matter, and your podcast, that you can learn from, even a couple little nuggets, and I just think that's great. So let's get into, everybody has that moment, and I would like for you to share this story either based on your personal life or based on your entrepreneurial life. That enough is enough moment, that point that kick in the gut moment where it was just the lowest of lows. I mean, tell us that story. Make us feel like we're in that situation with you.
Yes, for sure, Wally. And yeah, that's why I shared that story from my divorce. And I'm not going to say it was all because of my divorce, but as I mentioned at the beginning of my story, I was also already asking myself these questions with just what I was doing for work in general, and how I was feeling in life. I just knew there was a lot more that I could do or achieve. I wasn't really exactly sure in the beginning. I had heard or tried all the the network opportunities. I had tried real estate. I had climbed the corporate ladder within different positions, but it just wasn't really what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So, as I mentioned, along with the divorce came also a layoff from my corporate job. But what I did before the layoff, I made a decision. I actually started setting dates for when I would launch my podcast. I started setting a date for when I was finally going to make that decision to quit the corporate job. And I think that was my biggest moment, because that's when it really started getting real. That was the kick in the gut. And what I did is I didn't only just set the date. I also found 5 close friends that I could trust with my expression and my decision. And I told them that if I wouldn't comply with this date, I would pay them each $100, which equal to about $500 or $600 worth of accountability partners. So that made it that much more real. And so 2 months right before that date that I had set came, I get a letter for a layoff. And that was kind of the kick in the gut that I really, on how powerful it is to set a date and make a decision, because when I did that, I resonated with a quote from Les Brown that says, he mentions, I think if the universe has something big for you to do and you don't decide to do it, the universe will move on you. So that was my cue that I had to do something, and that was the universe moving on me. So that was my biggest kick in the gut moment for entrepreneurship.
That is amazing, because I say this all the time. I talk to people on a regular basis, and they're saying, something like, I wish I could come out to Hawaii. I've always wanted to do that. I wish I could travel. I wish I could do this. And I tell them my first response every single time is put it on the calendar. Mm-hmm. Put a date to it. Put it on the calendar. Next thing you do is put some skin in the game. And I didn't even think about that. I mean, I'm thinking about buy the tickets. Even if it's 2 years from now, you can't afford it. Buy the tickets. It'll work itself out. It just does. And how that does, you can call it whatever you want. It just does. By getting your accountability partners and your friends, and you telling them. Some people say that, my wife and I have this conversation about, if you have dreams and goals and whatnot, don't tell anybody, because there's dream stealers out there. And there are. But it's my belief that there's enough people out there that want to help us reach our goals. And there's enough energy out there that wants us to reach our goals. But then at the same time, like with you, your goal didn't come the way you expected it. You did not expect to get laid off, I'm sure, but it came. But guess that was the push, and that was God. And I'm going to use what I say. That was God. That was divine intervention, or that was the universe, however you want to say it. But bottom line is this: it presented itself, not in the way that you expected it to, but it did.
Yes, for sure, Wally. And yeah, and that is the caveat. According to your interview flow, is that you need that kick in the gut. You need to put it out there, even if you don't put any money, like the way I did. That made it that much more real when I told these guys, hey, I'm really gonna pay you $100 if I'm still working here by a certain date. And I said $500 or $600 because that reminded me I added a lunch to that, so it was 5 accountability partners with $100 each, and whatever the lunches were going to equal to. But even saying it, like with my podcast journey, I've been telling people, hey, I'm going to launch this podcast on this day. Make sure you're listening for it. And if I don't do it, and I put it out there, they're going to remind me, hey, what happened to this thing? So that's that kick in the gut, and it's and that feeling sucks at times, but that's what's going to help push you to doing what it is you want to do. And it's really helpful on moving you on that entrepreneurial journey, and whatever it is you want to achieve.
So let me ask you, and this is kind of a different question, and this is actually a question that's going to come up on Q&A Saturday, because it's a question that came up on my within my circles, and it directly relates to that. Is that I did basically the same thing with my podcast. I actually built a launch team. And most of the launch team are people that I've known from high school, throughout my Army career, throughout my life over the last, 40 some odd years. But the interesting thing that I found was, and they all want to, they all say they want to support me and everything. All of the rates and reviews that I have on my podcast is nobody that I know. Or nobody, let me put it this way, nobody that I've known for more than 6 months since I started this whole podcast journey. How did that work out for you? How much support did you get from your close friends and family, and where did most of your support come from?
Yes, you're definitely right. I got pretty much the same experience, Wally. It was probably, I would say 80-20, yeah, that came from, 80% of the people that were friends and family didn't, but 20% did. I did have some supporters, but it was the ones that I knew were into either personal development, entrepreneurship. What I discovered is that, you can put your message out there, but you're not gonna change somebody who is not, who is stuck in their ways. There's just things that only life is going to teach certain people. Whether it's through an experience or what have you. But yeah, most of my reviews and my supporters have come from close circle networks, or even like-minded networks and masterminds that I'm a part of. That's mainly where the supporters have come from. And it does get lonely, as I mentioned, because you ask somebody to review or listen to some of your episodes, and yes, life is busy, but you ask for just that support, and you hear crickets sometimes.
Right. So obviously your pivot point And your enough is enough moment and your pivot point was basically when you got laid off. That was when it was go time. I mean, there was no turning back, right?
Yes, for sure, Wally. Yes, I've been on this full-time journey, I guess you could say. My whole entrepreneurial and podcast journey started mid 2015. I attended my first podcast movement event, which was the first personal development type seminar that I attended. But my full-time journey started this year, and I've been sticking with it so far. Right now, I'm living with a couple of my savings, and I'm not holding back. A little bit of my savings and a little bit of severance, and I'm just continuing with this journey on really making my passion, a reality. It's a bumpy road. It's nothing pretty. The same thing. It's definitely an adventure for me right now. It's been an adventure for me in entrepreneurship with my podcast journey. It's been an adventure with my dating life as well. Just getting out there and developing myself as a man, both spiritually, physically, and just any way I can better myself. But it's definitely been an adventure. Yeah.
So now that you're full time, what is that doing for your relationship with your children?
It's been making me more conscious of the time that I'm spending with them. As I mentioned, now that the time has to be split between two parents, I pay more close attention on the time that I spent with them. Also the activities, so I try to leverage it as much as I can. And also my entrepreneurial journey, I think, has led me to develop more as a dad, and not just trying to fix all the time I don't spend with them with a simple trip to the movies or anything like that. I try to sit down and also have a conversation with them, besides asking them, if they did their homework and how their grades are looking like. I try to, get into what maybe is going through their minds, and I try, even if they don't ask, I tell them, hey, I know it's a lot of changes going on with, me and your mom not being together anymore. And I just try to be the best message I can be. I know I'm not perfect, but I just try to be the best message I can be to them. And I mentioned my dating life because I know as men, especially as a single man, you're gonna be heartbroken. You're gonna feel alone at times. So you are gonna have to, get out there and meet new people and just socialize, because it's hard. Like, as I mentioned, men will take it in different ways. Some will be okay about it. Some will be like, oh, this is the freedom I was looking for. And then some might, bury themselves in, I don't know, some type of addiction, whether it's alcohol or what have you. But you do have to get out in the world and just, take a class, take a fitness class or something, and just begin to meet new people, because you can get lost within that experience of going through a divorce. For men, especially after you go through a breakup, it's like, is there ever going to be anybody else for me out there? Will I ever find love again? And so far my answer is yes, because I've met women that have been through my own experiences, and some that have never had children or anything, and it's almost like they feel like if they're going to be alone for the rest of their lives. So take your time with finding that new relationship. You don't want to rush into anything. So far my experience has been to not make women the ultimate goal. I think they're like a natural bonus to a well-lived life. If you develop yourself as a man, and like as I mentioned, spiritually, physically, it just kind of it should all come together. Don't rush that journey, and it's an adventure. Have fun with it. You're gonna have times when you have a good date or a bad date, and just take your time and have fun with it.
Yeah, so that's a great segue into what the next couple of questions that I have for you, which is in the Pay It Forward round. Men of Abundance, one of the big ways that I keep the mic on and I keep this podcast going every week, and I'm going to keep it going in the future, is the affiliates that we are affiliated with and the partnerships that we have with those affiliates. Now, you know I'm big into health and nutrition, and it's very important to me and my family, and I will only introduce to you what I personally introduce to my family. Shakeology is something I've been drinking for almost 5 years now. I drink this stuff every single day. It is a dense nutrition shake. It is by far the healthiest meal of my day. I start my day every single morning with a Shakeology. Now, my favorite flavor is greenberry. My wife loves the vanilla, and she likes to put a little bit of PB2 or peanut butter in it. Now, recently, we've both fallen in love with the cafe latte. That one is unbelievable. If you like coffee, you are going to love it. This stuff is 100% natural. It's got over 70 ingredients in it, tons of superfoods like ashwagandha, goji berry, you name it. I'm not going to go through the whole list here. So yeah, Shakeology's got all this great stuff in it, but what has it done for me? What it's done for me is, number one, it greatly improved my cholesterol. It improved my cholesterol to the point that my doctor swore I was on Lipitor or something. He originally wanted to put me on Lipitor, and I decided I was going to find another way. Ironically enough, that same week, I found Shakeology. In addition to that, I have joint issues, I have arthritis issues, and Shakeology helps me with all of that. It helps me with my blood pressure. It helps people with their diabetes because it's very low on the glycemic index. I can go on and on about the health benefits of Shakeology. I do have to throw in the disclaimer because by law I have to do that. Shakeology is not a cure for anything. All I can tell you is my experience and the personal experience that I know of close friends of mine who have been drinking Shakeology as long as I have or longer. It's truly amazing stuff, and you want to get it in your family. You can find out everything you want to know about Shakeology by going to the resources page at menofabundance.com. Scroll down to where it says health and nutrition, and you will see the Shakeology link there. Now, I will tell you, with everything that you get in one glass of Shakeology, it comes out to about $4.50 a serving. That's less than your average Starbucks latte, and you get no nutritional value whatsoever with that. Don't get me wrong, I like my latte at Starbucks as well, but when it comes to spending money, I make sure I spend my money in the right place, and I make sure I'm getting the proper nutrition and making sure my family's getting the proper nutrition. If that's important to you like it is to me, give Shakeology a try. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right, let's get back to the show. So you ready to pay it forward, Jesse?
I am ready, Wally. Let's pay it forward.
So what are 1 to 3 actionable steps that you can share with Men of Abundance so they can take action today?
Okay, Wally, yeah. Some of the actionable steps I'd like to recommend is to just go on that adventure. And what I mean by that adventure, lately I've been doing a lot of travel, and that has really gotten me out of my comfort zone and out of my neighborhood. It's been a wonderful experience, as I mentioned, with some personal development conferences, and also investing in myself with through fitness, and even taking just dance classes, trying to refresh or catch up on my dancing. Just getting out of your neighborhood, doing something different, and I'm trying to give a message whether you are in a relationship or not, or going through a breakup, because I think going on that adventure really opens your mind, because we get caught up within routine, and especially as I mentioned, for those who are just feeling stuck in the corporate world, you get caught up in the routine of doing the rush hour thing, showing up to the job, coming back. And that can affect you, in many ways, that's what affects you, whether you're in a relationship or not. That may or may not have had something to do with my breakup. But that's, going on that travel adventure with your significant other can help you nourish that relationship. Or if you're a single guy, getting back, getting your life back after a breakup the way I am, that travel will also help you out and bring life back into yourself, because you do lose a lot of life after your breakup. And I know the budget can be a little bit difficult sometimes, but you can start domestically or even in your state. I've found out there's a lot of fun things I can do within my state here in Texas. So I just encourage everybody to go on a travel adventure or even an activity adventure by taking a class, catching up on your fitness, and that'll help you just kind of wake you up and even narrow down, if you're on that entrepreneurial journey, narrow down what that passion or what that idea that you're looking for is.
Yeah, absolutely. In Texas, you can drive for hours and never get outside of that state. So what daily habits make the biggest impact in your life?
Right now, my daily habits have been to just wake up, and I've been trying to do the whole miracle morning thing. And there's a book out there by Hal Elrod. It's called The Miracle Morning. Yeah, there's some good starter habits, and of course you can look up blogs and everything. And they consist of of meditation, just 5 minutes, and I also try to improve on my spirituality, so that this can be in the form of prayer. And I'm a big fan of personal development, so I add a motivational video to my daily routine. So that's part of my two habits, and another one is just diving right in, whether it's activities with my podcast. There's times when I don't feel like recording, and you probably feel the same way at times too, Wally. But I just dive in, and you realize that once you just get going, you find yourself just doing it, and you feel a whole lot better about it. Same thing goes for exercising. You dive in, you get your little warm up with your jumping jacks or your shadow boxing or what have you, and as soon as you get the blood pumping, then next thing you know, you're in the midst of your workout and you feel a lot better about it. So those are daily habits that I think will start impacting your life, because if you just sit and think about it, then you're going to get stuck in your head, and your attitude or your negative thoughts are going to start trying to take over. But if you get into doing some of those daily habits, meditation, prayer, and just doing the task, just attacking the process, whatever it is that you're achieving.
Yeah, and I definitely resonate with that last one, just jumping in. I've told myself the more I mess up, the better I get. This show is definitely proof of that, without a doubt. I'm getting better, but I'm still messing up, and it's everything else in life. So what book would you recommend to our abundant leaders, and why?
A book I'd love to leave your audience with a recommendation is the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and I think it's a book that will help, just as the book says, a new way to get more living out of life. And I think that's a book that will help everybody, regardless if they're at the beginning of their entrepreneur journey or just trying to find more meaning in life. And it's a good addition to whether you're trying to improve, through personal development or spiritually. It's great. It just covers a lot of questions that we ask ourselves when we're trying to get more out of life, because I think that's the ultimate meaning that we're all looking for. Because we've all heard the stories on how as much as you try to use material and monetary goals to fill your life, at the end the things, the things that you own end up owning you. So there's no rewards in that. So that'd be a great book for the audience, I think, right there.
Yeah, I have heard of that book, and I have not read it yet. Do you know if it's an audio version yet? I think it is.
Yes, there is a paperback and audio, and it's a great book for confidence, especially for the Men of Abundance listeners.
Perfect. And I'll have those notes, and I'll have those links to that book, the audio and the paperback, in the show notes of this show. Just search Jesse on the website, menofabundance.com, and it'll come up. So, Jesse, as we mentioned before the show and we talked about before, at the end of the year, I will be donating to various charities. And what I do is I afford my guests an opportunity to mention a charity that resonates with you so that we can give on your behalf. So what charity would that be?
Okay, well, my favorite charity right now has been, and I've been donating to them for the past couple months, but my favorite charity is St. Jude's Hospital. And I just love donating to them because, first of all, they have, the opportunity for you to donate at a low level or at a high level. And I just love using that as a reality check for me anytime I feel like I'm not enough, which I think, a lot of us men go through. I think personally, so far from my experience, I think every man goes through it, is that, there's going to be a time when you don't feel like you're enough. And when you donate to a charity of your choice and you see the good that you're doing and you see even the struggles that other people go through, it's just a great reminder to just wake up, because there's no excuse for feeling like you're not enough, and that's just a great way for me to wake myself up.
Great. And again, we'll have that charity listed in the show notes, and I also have a charity page as the giving link at menofabundance.com, where I will be listing all of these charities out there as well and have your name next to it.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Wally.
So I got one last question for you before we close this up.
Mm-hmm.
What does living a life of abundance mean to Jesse Ortiz?
Awesome question, Wally. Yeah. So right now for me, it has been to just keep going, keep striving through whatever challenge it is that you're facing, because you're going to go through challenges, whether you're building a business, you're building yourself up, your body, your relationship. But when you keep that mindset of abundance, that's just going to keep you going. You know that there's opportunity regardless of what stage you are in life. Just keeping that mindset of abundance makes you unstoppable, because really, I mean, the world is your oyster. I mean, that's been my experience so far. I mean, the only person that can stop you is you. So when you have that mindset of abundance, you just keep going. And if there's something you can't figure out, you'll find the way, whether it's through an experience, a challenge, and even a failure. Failure is never really a failure. It's more of a lesson. So just keeping that mindset of abundance. That's what true living is for me.
Excellent. That's a great answer. I love that. So, parting piece of guidance, and how can we reach you?
Right now, my parting piece of guidance would be to just keep developing yourself. That's my whole mission behind my podcast. I think if you're not growing, you're dying, as Tony Robbins say. So that would be my advice right there. Is just keep growing, keep developing yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. And
what's the best way, other than listening to your podcast, what's the best way for Men of Abundance to get in touch with you and find out more about what Jesse is doing?
Right now, Wally, just everybody can reach me at lifestyleconversations.com. You should find links there to my website, my email, my podcast, and just reach out if you have any questions or just want to say hello. You can reach me there.
Perfect. Jesse, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing and getting very deep and getting personal with Men of Abundance. And I look forward to talking with you in the future and see where everything's going.
Yes, for sure, Wally. Definitely look forward to doing this again.
All right, Men of Abundance, that's our conversation for today. Make sure you subscribe to Men of Abundance so that you don't miss out on any shows, especially this Friday. We are going to have a conversation with Mo of Mo's Heroes and talk about what they are doing for our veterans. You will definitely want to get in on that conversation.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.